As Melbourne became more expensive and more crowded, a quiet escape route opened up just down the highway. Over recent years, tens of thousands of people have left Melbourne for Geelong, transforming a city once known mainly for industry into one of Victoria's most desirable lifestyle destinations. Today we break down how Geelong quietly became Melbourne's escape hatch. Let's start with the transformation, because it is dramatic. For most of its history, Geelong was an industrial city, defined by manufacturing, a major car plant, and a working port. When the car manufacturing industry wound down, many feared Geelong would decline into a struggling Rust Belt city. Instead, it reinvented itself completely. Today Geelong is a vibrant regional city with a beautiful revitalised waterfront, a growing health and education sector, and a thriving cultural scene, all within easy reach of both Melbourne and the famous Surf Coast. So what drove the great migration from Melbourne? The first factor is affordability. For the price of a modest home in many Melbourne suburbs, a buyer could get a larger, better home in Geelong, often closer to the water. For young families and first home buyers especially, that difference was transformative. The second factor is lifestyle. Geelong offers a more relaxed pace, a stunning bayfront, and proximity to the beaches of the Surf Coast and the Great Ocean Road, while still being a real city with real amenities. The third factor, and the one that supercharged everything, is the rise of flexible work. When people no longer needed to commute into a Melbourne office every day, living in Geelong and travelling to the city occasionally suddenly made perfect sense. Infrastructure made it all possible. The transport connection between Geelong and Melbourne means the journey is genuinely manageable, especially for people who only need to make it a couple of times a week. As more people made the move, Geelong invested in its waterfront, its city centre, and its services, creating a positive cycle. A more attractive city drew more people, which supported more investment, which made the city more attractive still. Geelong rode exactly this kind of virtuous cycle, and its property prices climbed strongly as a result. Let's talk about where the value sits today. The premium waterfront suburbs and the areas closest to the beaches command the highest prices, reflecting their lifestyle appeal. The more interesting value for many buyers lies in the established middle suburbs, which offer solid homes, good access to the city centre, and the transport links, and prices that remain reasonable compared to both the Geelong waterfront and anything comparable in Melbourne. Buyers willing to look just beyond the most fashionable pockets can still find genuine value. Now for the risks, because Geelong is no longer the undiscovered bargain it once was. The first risk is simply that the easy gains have largely been made. The migration wave drove a powerful boom, and prices have risen to reflect it, so buyers arriving now are paying far more than the early movers did. The second risk relates to that same flexible work trend that fueled the boom. If employers were to pull workers back into the office full-time, some of the appeal of living an hour from the city could fade, though this seems unlikely to fully reverse. The third risk is the general one for any regional city. In a serious downturn, regional markets can be less liquid than the major capitals. So how should a buyer approach Geelong? 3 principles. First, recognize that you are buying into a genuine, durable lifestyle and affordability story, not a quick speculative gain. The forces that drove people from Melbourne to Geelong, cost and lifestyle, are not going away. Second, focus on established suburbs with strong fundamentals rather than chasing the most expensive waterfront or the most distant new estates. Third, treat it as a long-term hold. Geelong has matured into a real city with real demand, and over a long horizon that maturity should continue to support values. Geelong's journey from an industrial city facing decline to Melbourne's escape hatch is one of the great reinvention stories in Australian property. It proves that a city's past does not determine its future, and that when affordability, lifestyle, and connectivity line up, people will move in numbers large enough to transform an entire market. If you found this useful, hit subscribe, because we break down a different Australian property market every few days. See you in the next one. It is worth understanding why Geelong's reinvention worked when so many former industrial cities struggle to recover, because the lessons apply to picking regional winners anywhere.